The new atheists argue in some ways along these lines, but what they have done, I think like many utopians, is distort the very disciplines that they claim as the basis for their ideology. They have essentially created a definition of religion that embodies all evil. Religion is responsible for violence, for superstition, for ignorance, and certainly there is no question that religious groups have and religious institutions are culpable to this charge. But this simplistic view of the world, which I think is very much replicated by the radical Christian right, ignores the complexity and the ambiguity and the outside forces that go into creating fanaticism. One of the things that disturbs me most about the radical Christian right and the new atheists is this self-exaltation, this elevation of us above others, the kind of moral superiority, the relegating of other people to moral inferior levels. The kinds of things that the new atheists, for example, write about Muslims could be lifted from the most rabid sermon by a Christian fundamentalist. Their political agenda completely converges, and I think that's not accidental. Their political agenda completely converges, and I think that's not accidental. Their political agenda completely converges, and I think that's not accidental. Their political agenda completely converges, and I think that's not accidental. For example, Sam Harris, in his book, The End of Faith, asks us to consider carrying out a nuclear first strike on the Arab world, admitting that this, in his words, would be a crime that would kill tens of millions of people, but it may be something that we have to do given what these people believe. This kind of utopianism, this kind of belief that massive catastrophic violence will propel the world forward, I think is endemic within American society. The war in Iraq, for example, is a utopian project. If you take the roughly 10,000 Arabists in this country, and by that I mean people who speak Arabic and have spent a prolonged period of time in the Middle East, I don't think you could have found more than 10 that believed invading and occupying Iraq was a good idea. That somehow Iraqis would greet us as liberators, that democracy would be implanted in Baghdad and spread outwards throughout the Middle East, and that the oil revenues would pay for reconstruction. This was a non-reality-based belief system, and it's something that was embraced by the radical Christian right, by the neocons, and is embraced by those people who identify themselves as new atheists. What I fear is that at the core of both of these movements, there is a kind of celebration of ignorance. These people are culturally, and I'm talking about both the radical Christian right and the new atheists, they are culturally, historically, and linguistically illiterate. They know nothing about the Middle East and nothing about religion. At the core of both of these movements, there is a kind of celebration of ignorance. These people are culturally, and I'm talking about both the radical Christian right and the new atheists, they are culturally, historically, and linguistically illiterate.